The message came on a quiet Tuesday morning. It broke through Earth's communication networks like a stone through still water, interrupting broadcasts and catching the attention of every major space agency on the planet. The aliens called themselves the Mendari, and they were dying. In the control room of the International Space Command, Director Robert Adams stood frozen, watching as the alien transmission played across the main screen. The holographic figure speaking was tall and slender, with silver-tinted skin that seemed to shimmer under their world's purple sun. Despite the alien's strange appearance, the desperation in its voice needed no translation. To any civilization capable of receiving this message, the Mendari representative spoke through the hastily configured translation matrix. "We plead for aid. A plague threatens to exterminate our entire species. We have tried everything within our power, but nothing stops its advance. Our children die first, followed by our elderly. We have perhaps 3 months before our civilization collapses completely." The room fell silent as the message continued, detailing the plague's symptoms and the Mendari's failed attempts to fight it. Medical data streamed across secondary screens, showing death rates that made Earth's worst pandemics look mild in comparison. "We broadcast this message to over 1,000 advanced civilizations," the alien continued. "To any who receive this, we offer our technology, our resources, anything you wish in exchange for help. Please, we have no time left." Director Adams didn't hesitate. He reached for the communication panel, but before he could press a button, similar calls were already coming in from around the world. Medical teams volunteering, research facilities offering their services, and governments pledging support. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, Earth's best medical minds were reviewing the Mendari data. Within days, the first emergency response fleet was being assembled. It didn't matter that humanity was one of the younger spacefaring races, or that their technology was considered primitive by galactic standards. They had something more important: centuries of experience fighting diseases that tried to wipe them out. Captain Tom Walker stood on the bridge of the medical vessel, Hope's Light, watching Earth shrink behind them as his ship led the emergency response fleet. The ship's holds were packed with medical equipment, research labs, and enough supplies to build emergency hospitals. More importantly, it carried some of Earth's finest doctors, researchers, and emergency response teams. "Status report," Tom called out, his voice steady despite the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. "All systems running at full capacity, Captain," his first officer replied. "The other ships are maintaining formation. We're ready for the first FTL jump." Tom nodded, checking the coordinates the Mendari had provided. They were pushing their engines to the limit, attempting a journey that should take weeks in just days. Every hour could mean thousands of lives saved or lost. As the fleet prepared to jump, a series of messages from other alien civilizations began arriving. Most expressed sympathy but advised caution. Some suggested quarantine procedures that would take months to implement. Others simply acknowledged receipt of the distress call and promised to deliberate on the matter. Not a single one had launched a rescue mission. "All ships report ready for jump, Captain," the navigation officer announced. Tom took a deep breath, thinking of his own children back on Earth. The Mendari children dying first had struck a chord with every parent in the fleet. He thought of humanity's long history of fighting disease, of communities coming together in times of crisis, of strangers helping strangers simply because they could. "Take us in," he ordered. "Maximum speed." The fleet vanished into FTL space, leaving Earth behind. They didn't know if they could save the Mendari. They didn't know if the plague might affect humans too. They didn't even know if they would be welcomed or feared. They knew only one thing: someone needed help, and they could try to provide it. For humanity, that had always been enough. The human fleet dropped out of FTL speed near Mendar Prime, their ship's sensors immediately picking up thousands of orbital stations. Most were empty, their crews too sick to maintain them. The planet below glowed with purple-tinted clouds, its 3 moons casting multiple shadows across the surface. Dr. Anna Miller stood at the observation window of Hope's Light's medical bay, watching as they approached the Mendari homeworld. Around her, medical teams were making final preparations, checking protective suits and organizing equipment. The ship's internal gravity shifted slightly as they entered the planet's atmosphere. "All medical personnel, prepare for landing." Captain Walker's voice came through the speakers. "Remember your training. We don't know if our protective gear will be fully effective against this plague, but we have to try." Anna checked her tablet one last time, reviewing the Mendari physiology data. Despite their advanced technology, the aliens were surprisingly similar to humans in basic biological functions. They had equivalent organs, similar cellular structures, and even compatible blood chemistry. It gave her hope they could help. The Hope's Light landed in what had once been a busy spaceport. Now it was nearly empty, with only a small group of Mendari officials waiting to greet them. Through her protective suit's visor, Anna could see the toll the plague had taken. The aliens were thin, their silver skin dulled with illness, and they moved slowly, conserving energy. We did not truly believe anyone would come," the lead Mendari said, his translator converting the musical sounds into English. "Especially not so quickly. We are the 6th elder race. We thought the younger species would be too afraid to help." Captain Walker stepped forward, his voice clear through his suit's speakers. "On Earth, we have a saying. A stranger is just a friend you haven't met yet. We came because you needed help. That's all we needed to know." The Mendari gathered closer, their large eyes showing an emotion that needed no translation. Hope. Within hours, the humans had transformed the spaceport into an emergency medical center. More ships landed, bringing additional supplies and personnel. Anna worked with her team to set up testing stations, beginning the process of understanding how the plague affected Mendari bodies. Dr. Miller, one of her assistants, called out, "You need to see this." Anna hurried to the testing station. Under the microscope, she could see Mendari blood cells fighting a losing battle against the plague organisms. But something was different about these particular samples. "These are from the children?" she asked, adjusting the magnification. "Yes, doctor. The plague attacks them first because their immune systems are still developing. But look at how it spreads." Anna watched, her mind racing. The pattern was familiar, too familiar. A commotion near the entrance interrupted her thoughts. More Mendari were arriving, carrying their sick children. The sight of aliens willing to trust their young to strange beings from another world moved everyone who saw it. "We need more beds in the children's ward," Anna called out, and human medical staff immediately began reorganizing the space. No one complained about the extra work. No one hesitated. The Mendari watched in amazement as humans worked tirelessly, treating patients, gathering data, and offering comfort to the dying. They had expected cold scientific procedures. Instead, they found humans holding the hands of sick aliens, singing to frightened children, and working until they could barely stand. "Why?" one Mendari asked Anna as she helped him to a bed. "Why do you try so hard for people you don't know?" Anna thought about all the times in human history when diseases had threatened to destroy them, and how they had always fought back. How strangers had helped strangers, cities had helped cities, and nations had helped nations. "Because," she said simply, "next time, we might be the ones who need help. And even if we're not, helping others is what makes us human." 2 weeks after the human fleet's arrival, the first human doctor fell ill. By the end of the day, 5 more showed symptoms. The protective suits weren't perfect. The plague had found a way through. Engineer Jack Ross worked in his makeshift lab, dark circles under his eyes as he studied the suit designs. He hadn't slept in 36 hours, but he couldn't stop. Not now. Not when his friends were getting sick. "Jack," Captain Walker's voice came from the doorway. "You need to rest." "Tom, the suits are failing," Jack replied, not looking up from his work. "The plague organisms are smaller than we thought. They're getting through the fabric at the molecular level." The captain walked over to his friend's workstation, looking at the complex diagrams spread across multiple screens. How many? 28 infected now, Jack said quietly. All medical staff who work directly with critical patients. The news spread quickly through the human fleet, but what happened next shocked the Mendari observers. Instead of retreating, more human volunteers stepped forward to help. I don't understand, the Mendari medical chief said to Anna, who was still working despite her own growing fatigue. Your people are getting sick. Why don't you leave? Anna adjusted the medicine drip for a young Mendari patient before responding. Because the job isn't finished. She smiled at the child, who had shown the first signs of improvement that morning. And we don't leave jobs unfinished. In the main medical bay, Jack had finally developed new suit protocols. The upgraded designs would be better, but they couldn't help those already infected. He watched as another human doctor was brought in, her silver-tinted skin showing the plague's progress. The Mendari were stunned by this development. Human bodies tried to fight the plague by copying it, turning their skin silver like the Mendari. It wasn't fatal for humans, but it was incredibly painful. The suit upgrades are ready, Jack announced over the general comm. All personnel need to report for equipment changes immediately. As medical teams lined up for their new suits, a group of human scientists made an unexpected discovery. The infected humans, despite their suffering, were providing valuable data. Their bodies fought the plague differently than the Mendari, showing new ways to attack the disease. Their sacrifice might save us all, the Mendari chief whispered, watching the humans continue their work despite their illness. In the children's ward, one of the infected doctors, her skin now completely silver, still made her rounds. She checked each patient, offered comfort, and kept working even as her own fever rose. The Mendari parents watched in awe, their cultural understanding of duty and sacrifice expanding with each passing day. Captain Walker stood in his office, reading the latest reports. The number of infected humans had risen to 40, but not a single one had asked to leave. Instead, they donated blood samples, documented their symptoms, and kept treating patients for as long as they could stand. Captain, his comm officer called. We're receiving messages from Earth. More volunteers are coming. 3 ships full. Tom looked out his window at the purple sky of Mendar Prime. He thought about how humans throughout history had faced deadly diseases, how doctors had risked their lives, how nurses had worked until they dropped, how researchers had sometimes tested cures on themselves. Tell them we'll be ready, he replied. In the quiet hours of that night, as the medical bays hummed with activity, and the infected humans glowed silver in their beds, the Mendari began to understand something profound about their saviors. Humans didn't just help, they committed completely. They didn't just offer aid, they offered themselves. And in that understanding, the Mendari found not just hope for survival, but a new definition of courage. Dr. Anna Miller stared at her computer screen, her now silver skin glowing in the dim light of the lab. 3 days of fighting the plague in her own body had taught her more than 3 weeks of research. Now, finally, she saw something everyone had missed. Captain Walker, she called over the comm. I need you in the lab. Now. When Tom arrived, he found Anna surrounded by historical medical documents from Earth. Images of various human diseases filled the screens around her. It's not a natural plague, she said, her voice hoarse but excited. Look at this pattern. It's engineered. This is a weapon. Tom leaned closer to the screens, his tired eyes widening. A bioweapon, but the Mendari said it appeared naturally. Because that's what they were meant to think. Anna pulled up more data. This plague is too perfect, too efficient. Natural diseases have flaws, weaknesses. This thing, she paused to cough, this was designed. They called an emergency meeting with the Mendari High Council. The aliens' reaction to the news confirmed their worst fears. The Ancient Ones, the first speaker whispered. Before us, before the 6th Elder Race, they ruled this sector. We found ruins of their civilization, but never thought. You discovered something you weren't meant to find, Tom finished. A stored weapon. The Mendari Council shared their archaeological data. 3 months ago, they had opened a sealed facility deep beneath their world's surface. The plague had started 1 week later. Anna worked with renewed energy despite her illness. She began comparing the plague to every human disease ever recorded. Humanity's long history of fighting diseases, and sometimes creating them, gave her unique insights. Our immune systems, she explained to a group of Mendari doctors. They're different from yours, more aggressive, less specialized. When the plague infects us, it struggles to adapt. The Mendari watched in fascination as she showed them microscopic images of human blood cells fighting the plague. While Mendari immune systems tried to identify and counter the specific threat, human bodies launched all-out attacks from multiple directions. Your bodies are like precise surgical tools, Anna said. Ours are more like. She searched for a simple comparison, like throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. In the research lab, human scientists made another breakthrough. The silver skin reaction wasn't just a symptom. It was their bodies actually incorporating Mendari DNA to fight the plague. We're natural adapters, one researcher explained to the amazed Mendari. Throughout Earth's history, humans have survived by changing, by taking in what works and making it our own. The Mendari chief scientist shook his head in wonder. You're saying that your bodies are evolving right now to fight our plague. That's what humans do, Anna said, smiling despite her discomfort. We adapt, we survive, and we help others survive too. Captain Walker received the preliminary research results in his office. The plague was designed to target specific genetic sequences common in all elder race species. But human DNA, rougher and more varied, gave the weapon nothing solid to latch onto. We're too messy to make good targets, Anna told him, laughing weakly at the irony. Our genetic diversity, all those centuries of different peoples meeting and mixing, it's saving us now. As the day ended, hope began to spread through the Mendari medical centers. The humans hadn't just brought help, they had brought the key to survival in their very blood. Their imperfect, adaptable, incredibly resilient blood. Tom looked out at the purple sunset, thinking about the long history that had led to this moment. Every plague humanity had survived, every adaptation they'd made, every bit of genetic diversity they'd gained through their long history of mixing and matching populations. It had all prepared them for this moment. Sometimes, he realized, humanity's greatest strengths came from what others might consider weaknesses. Earth's response to the emergency call shocked even the most optimistic Mendari. Within days of receiving word about the cure, humanity launched the largest relief operation in their history. Every ship capable of spaceflight was loaded with medical supplies and production equipment. They're coming in waves, Jack reported from his monitoring station. I count over 200 ships entering the system. Cargo vessels, research ships, even converted passenger liners. Anna watched from the main medical center as the sky filled with human vessels. Her silver skin had started to fade, like many of the other infected humans, but she kept working. The combined human Mendari treatment wasn't just a cure, it was protection against future attacks. The Ancient Ones never considered this possibility. She explained to the Mendari Medical Council. They designed a weapon that targets specific genetic patterns, but when those patterns mix and change, the weapon becomes useless. The chief finished, understanding dawning in his eyes. The new arrivals transformed Mendar Prime's orbital stations into production facilities. Human engineers worked alongside Mendari technicians, teaching them to modify their advanced equipment for the urgent task. What the humans lacked in technological sophistication, they made up for with practical experience and creative solutions. In the children's ward, the first group of fully recovered patients celebrated with their human doctors. Young Mendari, their skin returning to its natural silver shade, drew pictures of Earth ships and human medical teams. Their parents watched with tears in their eyes, a very human gesture they had adopted. How did you know it would work? One mother asked Captain Walker as he visited the ward. How did you know your people wouldn't simply die alongside us? Tom thought about it. We didn't, he answered honestly. But that's never stopped humans from trying to help. The production lines worked day and night. Human cargo ships delivered the cure to every corner of the Mendari world. In remote areas, where landing was impossible, they used drop pods. No settlement was too small, no location too difficult to reach. Jack's atmospheric processing modifications began showing results. The plague particles in the air decreased rapidly, reducing new infections. His team had accomplished in weeks what the Mendari thought would take years. It's not about having the best technology, he told his amazed Mendari colleagues. It's about refusing to believe something's impossible. In orbit, the Mendari's automated defense systems detected new arrivals. But instead of more human ships, these were vessels from other advanced civilizations, the same ones who had ignored the original distress call. They're offering help now, the first speaker said, a touch of bitterness in his voice. Now that humans have shown it's possible. Let them come, Tom replied. The more help, the better. Humans didn't do this to prove anything. We did it because it needed to be done. Anna's team made another breakthrough. The combined human Mendari treatment didn't just fight the current plague. It strengthened both species against similar weapons. What the Ancient Ones had intended as a tool of destruction had led to an advancement in medical science. Your bodies adapt so quickly, a Mendari researcher noted, studying the latest results. Even now, your genetic structure is incorporating our strengths while maintaining your adaptability. That's humanity's greatest talent, Anna said, smiling. We learn, we change, we grow, and we help others do the same. As the sun set on another day of healing, the first official recovery statistics came in. The plague's spread had not just slowed, it was reversing. For the first time since the humans arrived, victory wasn't just possible, it was certain. In the end, what defeated the Ancient One's weapon wasn't advanced technology or superior knowledge. It was something they had never considered. The power of two species working together, sharing their strengths, and refusing to give up. The second wave hit without warning. Thousands of Mendari who had shown no symptoms suddenly fell ill. The emergency medical centers were overwhelmed within hours. We need more beds, Anna shouted, her silver skin gleaming with sweat as she rushed between patients. Move the research equipment to the ships. Convert every lab into a treatment room. Captain Walker coordinated the chaos from the command center they'd set up in the spaceport. Status reports flooded in from medical centers around the planet. The plague was mutating, adapting to their treatments, becoming even more aggressive. The Ancient Ones built this weapon too well. The Mendari first speaker said, watching the emergency teams work. It learns. It changes. So do we, Tom replied, sending out new orders to the fleet. Humanity has faced things like this before. We don't give up. We adapt faster. In the main research lab, Jack Ross worked with a team of engineers to modify atmosphere processors. They had discovered that the plague particles could survive in the air much longer than initially thought. The entire planet's air needed to be filtered. The system wasn't designed for this. One of the Mendari engineers protested. It cannot be modified to work faster. Jack didn't even look up from his work. Watch me, he said, already redrawing the systems. His silver hands moved across the controls with determined speed. The human medical teams pushed themselves beyond exhaustion. Those who weren't sick worked double shifts. Those who were sick refused to rest, knowing every minute could mean another life saved or lost. Anna's breakthrough came during her fever dreams. She woke up suddenly, calling for her tablet. The silver in their skin wasn't just a symptom. It was the key. Their bodies weren't just fighting the plague. They were rebuilding their immune systems using Mendari genetic patterns. We need to merge the samples, she told her team, her voice rough but urgent. Human antibodies combined with Mendari genetic material. The plague targets specific genetic sequences, so we give it something it's never seen before. The work was delicate and dangerous. Every failed attempt meant more lives lost. But hour by hour, They got closer. In orbit, more human ships arrived, bringing supplies and volunteers. The sight of Earth's vessels, small and primitive compared to Mendari technology, brought hope to everyone who saw them. They weren't elegant or advanced, but they kept coming, refusing to give up. "Your people are incredible," the Mendari medical chief told Tom. "We thought advanced technology was the measure of a species' worth. We were wrong." Tom watched as another group of human volunteers suited up to enter the high-risk zones. Some had silver skin, some didn't, but all of them were ready to help. "Humanity learned long ago that it's not about how advanced your tools are," he said. "It's about how far you're willing to go to help others." In the children's ward, a small victory gave everyone renewed strength. The first group of Mendari children treated with the new combined human-Mendari antibodies showed improvement. Their silver tint began to fade. Their fever dropped. "It's working," Anna whispered, checking the readings again and again. "The plague can't adapt to what it can't predict." But they weren't safe yet. The treatment was difficult to produce, and they needed massive quantities. The plague was still spreading, still killing. They had found the key to survival, but now faced an even bigger challenge: producing enough of the cure before it was too late. As another purple sunset painted the sky, the human fleet prepared for their hardest fight yet. They had the answer, but the clock was ticking. Now it was a race against time, and humanity had no intention of losing. 1 year after the first human ships arrived at Mendar Prime, the Mendari held a celebration unlike any in their long history. The great spaceport, once an emergency medical center, now hosted representatives from both worlds. The occasion: the opening of the first human Mendari Medical Research Center. Captain Tom Walker, his dress uniform pressed perfectly, stood beside Anna and Jack as the Mendari first speaker addressed the crowd. Some humans in the audience still carried traces of silver in their skin, a lasting reminder of their sacrifice. 1 year ago, the first speaker began. "We were a dying people. We had technology, knowledge, and power, but we lacked something far more important. We lacked hope." He gestured to the assembled humans. "These people, from a younger civilization, taught us the true meaning of advancement. It is not measured in tools or ships, but in the willingness to help others." The new research center gleamed in the purple sunlight. Built using a combination of human and Mendari design, it symbolized the best of both worlds. Inside, medical teams from both species would work together, studying diseases and developing cures. "The plague is gone," Anna told a group of young Mendari students who gathered around her. Many of them had been her patients during the darkest days. "But what we learned from fighting it will help both our peoples for generations to come." The center's laboratories contained something unique in the galaxy: a database combining human medical history with Mendari biological science. The genetic adaptations that had saved both species were being studied, revealing new possibilities in medicine. "We found something the ancient ones never understood," Jack explained to visiting scientists. "Strength doesn't come from purity or power. It comes from diversity, from adaptation, from working together." In orbit, human ships now docked regularly at Mendari stations. The two species had signed treaties of friendship and cooperation, but the real bonds went deeper than any official document. They had fought together, suffered together, and triumphed together. Other civilizations still don't understand, the Mendari medical chief said to Tom as they watched the celebration. "They ask why we trust humans so completely. They think we're letting emotion cloud our judgment." Tom smiled, remembering the hundreds of human doctors who had risked and given everything to save a species they had never met. Sometimes emotion is the clearest judgment of all. The ceremony reached its peak as both human and Mendari children released floating lights into the sky, a human tradition adapted to Mendari technology. The lights formed a double helix pattern, representing the combined DNA that had defeated the plague. In the medical center's main hall, a wall displayed the names of every human who had served during the crisis. Those who had fallen ill, those who had worked beyond exhaustion, those who had given everything to save others. Below the names was a simple inscription in both languages. They came when we called. What happens next? A young Mendari asked Anna as the lights danced overhead. Anna looked at the research center, at the ships in orbit, at the silver-tinged humans, and their Mendari friends celebrating together. We keep exploring, she said. We keep learning from each other, and most importantly, we keep helping anyone who needs it. As the purple sun set on Mendar Prime, the celebration continued. But it wasn't just about victory over a plague, or the friendship between two species. It was about something greater. The discovery that in the vast, often dangerous universe, the strongest force wasn't technology or weapons or power. It was the simple willingness to help, to sacrifice, to stand together against the darkness. And in that discovery, both humans and Mendari had found not just allies, but a shared destiny among the stars.